This is a WKYT podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Victor and Andrea.
What? Please don't. Too many people already do that to me.
Sorry. I thought you enjoyed the proper English pronunciation.
You know, Cameron Mills calls me Andrea.
Really?
We've talked so many times, and he still calls me Andrea.
I was just doing it as a joke.
And it's almost endearing. There was also a girl that I did pageants with. She beat me, of course. Most people did. But her name was Jenna Day, and she became Miss Kentucky, and we started out in teen together. So she literally heard me say my name, I'd say hundreds of times over the years, and she never stopped calling me Andrea.
Well, just imagine growing up in Eastern Kentucky with the last name Puente.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Even around here, you have some interesting interpretations of your name that I've heard.
Yeah. Well, yes, even in the building. But I would get I still get a lot of, it's Victor Fuentes.
Fuentes?
Yeah,
as in Daisy?
Yes, exactly. And I guess that's their only point of reference. And I go, apparently you've never heard of Tito Puente, the Mambo King.
Clearly.
Which I guess Andrea also
I think that's a safe bet.
Yes. What have you been up to, Andrea?
Oh, not much. Just living life. Trying.
Okay. Cool.
I think that's enough said.
You sound excited about that. So let's get into this week's podcast. It is part 2 of what was a great conversation that we had with Mr. Sam Dick.
He's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And like I said, I learned so much about him and, you know, the adversity he had to overcome. Because I think it's easy from the outside to look at Sam and be like, oh, his dad was a CBS correspondent. Like, it was a clear path to where he is today, and it wasn't.
And that's what he's talked about, is that he had help kind of getting in, knowing people. But once he was in there, I mean, it was tough. And, you know, and he stuck to it and faced some pretty serious adversity when you hear about him just getting fired.
Right.
That's nuts.
Right. Well, it's kind of like celebrities. I feel like, you know, movie stars and stuff, they talk about, or people ask him, do you want your kids to do this? And they're like, no, because I know how hard it is. So
sometimes
when
you see people get in and then they don't stick with it. But some of the good ones, like Colin Hanks, I'm a big fan of his stuff.
I love him.
You know, he obviously had his dad.
And he sounds like Tom Hanks. You know what I mean? I mean, it's difficult. And
but then
you're
he's
always
gone on
going
to
to
do great work of his own.
Exactly. And you're going to be compared to each other. But I think you just have to have thick skin, which hopefully, you know, obviously Sam did. And he kind of buckled down and just kept going.
A good job forging his own path.
I know.
So the other interesting thing I want to talk about, the special, they did end up putting it online. So you're able to watch that.
I already watched it. I actually watched it online, yesterday.
Yeah.
No, 2 days ago, Monday.
Well, so there you go. So if you're listening to this now, if you missed the special when it came out, you know, just search for it on WKYT. You'll be able to find it. And so I think it's kind of great that we put it out there so people will be able to just watch it as long as they want to.
I feel like I'm a big fan of Reed Travis now.
Oh, he's great. I've interviewed him before. Yeah, he's just such...
I mean, I always liked him, but I never really got... You know, you don't know these guys really on a personal level, but he's interviewed a lot in it, and I was so impressed. I
interviewed him at I want to say a Thanksgiving at the one of the shelters. They were there, you know, kind of helping feed people. And, man, he was just such a good dude. And if I didn't know any better, I would think he was a lot older than he was and had a lot of, like, media training because he was just... such a good talker and just so personable. And,
right. Well, he went to Stanford.
That's true. That helps.
So, I mean, he's obviously an intelligent guy, and he is older than most of the people on the team. You know, typically we talk to, like, 18-year-olds because they're all freshmen at UK. He seems like a real good guy, and so happy. Hopefully. It makes me, like, cheer for them even more, I think.
Yeah, and that helps you, you know, you get
Should
to know
we spoil the food?
Well, yeah, the special's already out there, so yeah, it's out there.
Wait, okay. Here's how we're going to get you to stay to the end. We'll tell you which food Coach Cal will not allow near him around game time in our closing after Sam's interview.
Very exciting. And while this is playing, Andrea's going to think of her favorite thing this week because I
already have it.
Oh, she has it? Wow. Andrea came prepared.
I did, for once.
So exciting. All right, see you guys on the other side. We are back with the one and only Sam Dick. Andrea looks real excited, and Sam's kind of scared now.
I was like, I have to keep doing this? Have I not talked about myself enough?
Well, I'm very honored to do it, first of all, and I had no idea we were going to do 2 parts, and I'm very honored to...
He's probably like, I need to get back to editing.
Yeah, he's like, guys. No, that's a good thing. He's relaxed now. You can tell.
I know.
Because
this is a lot better than probably what I need to be doing anyway. This is more fun.
Well, they say when you're studying or when you're trying to work on something, it's good to take time off to just put your brain on something completely different.
Yes.
And you come back with a new perspective. So we
Yes.
are doing that for you,
Thank
Sam.
you. Thank you.
I also know that there have been other times where we've talked to people, and afterwards I thought, I wanted to talk to them about this and about this. And I knew there would be so much with Sam trying to get it all in one, unless somebody wanted a 2.5-hour podcast. That seemed kind of excessive.
Okay, so there was a story this morning about 2 little girls who actually survived in the woods in California for 48 hours, and they were in the 4-H club. I know one of the first things that I loved about you, I just thought it was so interesting, was that you were an Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
Not just a Boy Scout, you were an Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
What is that process like?
Well, I have to give my parents credit because I lived in Kentucky as a Cub Scout. Then we moved to Virginia and Atlanta, and I was a Boy Scout. And when I got to be about 15, I was a late bloomer. I finally decided girls and cars and sports. But my parents said, listen, you're a Life Scout. I don't remember the exact words, but they were the ones that gave me that gentle shove to say, you really ought to get Eagle Scout. A lot of kids go to Star Life and they kind of stop. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I needed that gentle shove. My dad was an Eagle Scout. And again, as we talked about in the other podcast, he grew up without a dad, and he grew up in sort of poor circumstances. And I was always impressed that he was an Eagle Scout. And I've got his sash to this day, and I've got his Boy Scout book, which is kind of cool. So they pushed me to go ahead and get the 21 merit badges and do my Eagle Project. And you have to do it by the time you're 18, or it's gone forever. And so Andrea and Victor, the really neat thing is I'm really involved with Scouts now here locally. I help them out whenever I can. And I'm able to say to them, I am an Eagle Scout. You don't say I was. It's just something that you
still
always
are,
carry
yeah.
with you.
Like president.
But I think most of the public treats Eagle Scout as something pretty special, even if they're not familiar totally with scouting. So I feel very lucky and humbled that I had a community that supported me, because it's not just you. You have to have help. And I will say this, the really neat thing that happened actually was later, is when I was 18, I was getting ready to go to the University of Georgia. And instead of going on the class trip, I had the crazy idea that I would travel across the country by myself with a backpack, and I would hike 210 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail. And I had picked up a National Geographic at home, and there it was. And I'd hiked all up and down the Appalachian Trail because I lived in Kentucky and Georgia and Virginia, but I'd never been out west hiking. And I saw that there was this trail that went from Mexico to Canada. Now, I wasn't going to hike the whole thing, but I hatched this idea, and I convinced my parents that I could handle it because I'd been a Boy Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout. And so they let me go by myself because nobody would go with me because it's too crazy. I took a plane from Atlanta to Seattle, and then a bus from Seattle to Snoqualmie Pass in the middle of Washington State, a pancake house, and ate my last meal. And I got on the trail, and for 2 weeks I hiked somewhere between 20, 21 miles, I think I had to average a day, with a 60-pound pack. I mean, it was huge. And I weighed like 135 pounds. Back then, Victor,
Oh, I know.
Andrea's always looked great, but the guys, we can
Thank
put
God,
on.
I might have had you by a pound or two.
So it's one of the neatest things I've ever done. There were days I didn't see a single person, but I was literally hiking along Mount Rainier at the bottom, and one day it was ice and snow covered for as far as I could see. It was in August, and I was in my shorts, so it was comfortable, but it was snow. It's just the way it is in the Cascade Mountains. And I kept going in circles and circles and circles. I could not find the trail. And back then, sorry kids, there was no internet, no cell phone, no GPS. You had a compass and a map.
Yeah.
I should have been in the
That's what you
Scouts.
had. And so I couldn't panic. I'm by myself. No one's around. No one. And so I thought, well, I'll just pitch my tent here on the side of this snowy hill, mountain, whatever, and sleep and get up the next morning and try again. And sure enough, I got up, and almost immediately the sun had melted the ice off of a sign that I had missed. And I got back on the trail. But so I ate freeze-dried, dehydrated food every day. You put boiling water in a bag and stir it up and eat it.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, you can't pack that much food.
No.
Like, were you living off the land?
So
By the end of it, your pack's a lot lighter.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And I had a week of supplies, and then my mom mailed me the second week. I went through a little tiny ski lift with a little post office, and there was a box waiting for me, and that was for my mom. And one more quick story from that trip. I met somebody coming the other way, and we traded food because I was so tired of this beef stroganoff and spaghetti and all this different stuff and noodles I was eating. And so he gave me this big bag of prunes. Mm-hmm. Now,
so you're out in the woods eating prunes.
Normally I would not eat prunes, but on that day, a weekend, feeling like a mountain man, I just started eating prunes.
And it's sweet.
And I always tell the scouts when I tell that story, I said I was gas powered for much of that day.
I bet you are.
I think one of the things you realize, especially if you know what it takes to become an Eagle Scout, is just the dedication and then somebody to have that kind of follow through. When I was about 14 or 15, I went to a friend's ceremony who was becoming an Eagle Scout. I didn't know anything about it until that day, and that's part of it, is them going through their projects and just everything, and you kind of gain respect for somebody realizing what all they were willing to do.
I think you understand what a person is capable of. Like, I probably wouldn't even think, like, oh, I couldn't do that. But you can. You just have to learn those skills.
And it was lonely, but I'd read a book by this guy that said that to experience the mountains, you have to go by yourself.
And you got it. You're like, yes, I'm going to.
Did you reach Nirvana?
I don't know if I did or not.
But you're still into all that,
a little
stuff
bit
right now. I mean, you still do triathlons.
I haven't done a triathlon in a year or two, but I did that for a while. But the funny thing is, I took my son when he was 8 a long time ago to a Cub Scout camp out at the horse park, and about 4 o'clock in the morning, I thought, I'm out of here. I'm not sleeping in this tent. I'm not sleeping on this air mattress. Son, your leader's here. You're staying. I'm going. And so I walk in about 4 o'clock in the morning. Noelle's still asleep. My wife, I'm like, I'm done.
I've done it. I lived it, and I'm kind of like that.
Nothing else to prove.
Yeah. Like that with camping now. We camped so much in Powell County growing up that after a while I've gotten older. I'm like, I'm an adult. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So one of the things I wanted to get into. Oh, did you want to?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to get into some of the other bigger projects you've been able to do now in your role. And one of the things I really wanted to ask about was the trips. Mm-hmm. Those Fantastic Four. I almost got into
those fantastic.
They are fantastic. You did. Those final, not even just Final Four trips, but there's the SEC tournament every year, and then just some of the Final Four trips. I mean, what is it like preparing for those? Because I don't think people realize how much work they are.
Yeah.
I mean, you're up, you're at work, and until you go to bed, you're working.
Yeah. It's probably one of the hardest things I do or have done in this business. When I'm done, I'm exhausted. I mean, I can tell my body is really depleted, and I can just tell the energy's not there after a week on the road doing that. So I have been to every Final Four with Kentucky since about 1993. And I have covered the last 3 championships with 3 different coaches. So I was there in '96 in New Jersey in the Meadowlands when Rick Pitino won with his team. I was there in San Antonio when Tubby Smith won the championship. And then the latest one with Cal in New Orleans in 2012. And you bring up a great point, Victor and Andrea, is that we start work generally on those trips sometimes between 8 and 9 in the morning. And we're usually not done till midnight or even 1 o'clock in the morning. Because, as you know, we have to feed the beast. Mm-hmm. And so after we do the 11 o'clock, we're feeding stuff for Andrea and Bill on the morning show. And when we wake up in the morning, we're thinking about either the 10 o'clock or the noon. And as you know, there's a deadline, and you got to meet it. And so people think, well, they just get a ticket and go to the game.
They're having a good time out there. Look at all the fun.
Yeah, it looks great.
And it is fun. I mean, there is
there's
fun
some
aspect.
Great memories, and I got a little story with each one. I don't know if we have time, but when we went to New Jersey in '96, it was so cold. We were right on New Jersey on the water with the Statue of Liberty behind us, and the Twin Towers were still there. If we see pictures from back then, you see that really hits home. But it was so cold, I had to go get long johns for everybody. I remember that. Barbara was freezing.
She's talked about that before.
She probably has. But so here we are. It's a semifinal game on Saturday, and Kentucky's in the semifinal, and I got a pass. Now, I've never been to a championship game before at this point, and so I had a media pass to be on press row. And I didn't really understand totally the rules about being on press row. So I'm on press row, and I'm a longtime Kentucky fan.
You're just cheering?
And, well, I didn't cheer, but I started to groan and grunt. Ooh! Oh,
You're feeling it, man.
And we didn't even get to halftime, and this little newspaper guy from Iowa goes, you can't do that here. And he was serious.
Oh.
And I was like, you're right.
Okay.
And I had to hold it in.
Now,
no more.
You know what? That's something I like about you. It always, you've been doing this.
Andrea would have snapped back at it. That's what she said. She would have been like, "You don't tell me what to do." Instead, Sam goes, "All right, let me consider the situation."
But Sam, you're always so enthusiastic about everything you do. Some people, I think they get so burnt out. I don't sense that with you at all. I feel like you still enjoy it. I mean, literally, you just put together an hour-long special. Like, if you didn't want to do that, no one's going to make you do that.
Yeah. Well, I want to, and the special, I mean, I really want to make it great for the viewers, and I also want to make it great for the station, because it hopefully will open doors to other things, but also just the fact that this is our station, this is our people putting together something really special, and it needs to be top-notch. And it's UK basketball, which, as you all know, is revered in Kentucky by most people. So, that gives me energy. And then to go on the Final Four trips, and I do get to watch the games, most of them, though when we get within 5 or 6 minutes of the end, I'm racing out to the live shot with, in this case, the last one with Amber, and getting ready to go on. So we almost miss it, but we're listening on our phones. In 2012 with Cal, before the game in New Orleans, we were on a huge, you all have seen them, these huge metal and steel what do you call them, scaffoldings.
Yes.
And there's TV crews all lined up all the way down. And there's a storm that is gathering around us. And we keep going and going live and going live. This
standing
is early
on metal, no big deal.
We're standing on metal, and we're pushing it, and we're on live. This is before the game. And all of a sudden, this police officer, this woman, comes running into the parking lot and goes, "It's here! Get out of here! Get down!" And we look, and we see that lightning.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah.
Well, we were fortunate. Our dear late colleague and friend Tom Bennett had rented an RV. And so, unlike some other stations here locally, we had a place to go. So we rapidly, for the sake of our lives, but we're also thinking, we want to be back live on the air. Yeah. So we're getting all of our tripods and equipment, the lights and the extension cords, and we set up inside this RV. And we did the rest of the night in an RV. At 1 o'clock in the morning after the game, I went live to Gabriel Rojas, who now I think is in Dallas.
I know him.
I will remember this shot forever.
And I pitched to Gabriel, and he's got like 6 or 7, mostly college-age students. Andrea, it's live. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Kentucky's won the championship.
That is a terrible combination.
What condition do you think these students are in?
Inebriated?
Yes. Well, the weird thing is I had what we call IFB. I could hear Gabriel, but Amber and Rob were not hooked up to that. So they couldn't hear what Gabriel was saying, much less his guests. Well, I could hear it. And I guess the guy either grabbed the mic or took the mic or whatever and basically said, "This is blanking crazy."
Oh.
He used the big, bad word.
Drop the bomb.
Fudge.
Only it wasn't fudge. Christmas story. And that went out live on the air. Gabriel quickly threw it back to me.
Gosh.
And I have kind of a stunned look on my face for a second. And I go, I think from what I remember, I said, well, I'm sorry that just got out over the air. Of course, Amber and Rob are like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
Later, some late-night talk show host took that, of course, and played it and said, "I don't understand why those Kentucky people were in that motor home," or something like that. He had no idea why we were in there. But, yeah. Live TV, don't you love it?
Oh, my goodness.
So then you were also for Tubby's championship.
Mm-hmm.
What was that one like?
Well, that was neat just from a personal standpoint because we were doing live shots in San Antonio, which is a great city, or was then at least. And this was before the game, and somebody walked up, saw me doing a live shot, and said, "Would you like to go to the game?" And I didn't have a ticket. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" He said, "Yeah, I've got an extra ticket." It was a local business owner here in Lexington, in San Antonio. And so I got to sit with he and his family for half the game or a little bit longer, like a regular fan, which is pretty cool. Because during the game, there's really not much I can do. The sports people are obviously much more intense in terms of focus as to the game itself. But
You're basically watching. The other thing people don't realize is a lot of the work you do is leading up to the game, and then there's a lot of work afterwards. But during the game, you are just kind of waiting for it to play out.
Yeah, and I'm focused. I want to know what's going on so I can relate it to our viewers, but not in such a way that like the sports people are doing. So that was just a nice moment where I got treated to a ticket, which doesn't happen very often, but I take advantage of it when it does.
And so then it's obviously different when you're going to new cities, but for the SEC tournament, I mean, that kind of rotated, like you.
I've never done that.
You haven't been? Oh,
No.
I've missed that.
No.
Okay.
They've left
I
that
didn't
for
realize that.
everybody else, I guess. I don't know. I've always thought that one day, if I'm ever not doing this, I'd like to go do that as a fan.
As a fan.
But I
that
have,
one looks fun because it seems a little less stressful. It seems a little lower key. You're on a smaller stage, but it's still fans traveling.
But I've never done that. So, so I guess I have to wait for the next Final Four. I don't know.
At least you get to go in the big ones.
So anyway, but I will say this, this is going to really date me if you don't mind, but when I lived in Atlanta, I was like 14, 15 years old, and I was a big UK basketball fan because of my dad, because he grew up in Bourbon County. He's a UK grad and went to school at UK, got his bachelor's and his master's in English, and so I always had that connection. I was born in Lexington. And this is going to sound really old school, but back then, most of the games were not on TV, and there were only 3 networks, and PBS, that was it. In terms of TV, you had 4 channels. So in Atlanta, what I would go out at night is I'd go to the car in the driveway, and I'd tune in WHAS radio AM, and I'd listen to Kaywood Ledford call the game on the radio. That makes me sound ancient, but that's how much I loved.
That makes me feel nostalgic.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's cool.
And he was a legend. I mean, he was a master, broadcaster. Mm-hmm. And so you hung on every word, and you sat there and you visualized the shot he was talking about, or about the turnover, or whatever, because you couldn't see it. But that kind of really fueled my love for it. And then when I went to Georgia, I actually was in a fraternity, and I don't know why they didn't kick me out, because I was cheering for Kentucky when Kentucky came to town.
You're a brave man.
And in 1978, my senior year, Joe B. Hall won his championship, and so I felt like I was pretty cool stuff.
That is cool. All right, so Kaywood, born to do what he did.
Yeah.
Here's something I find really interesting. I think you were in a conversation with Jim Caldwell, and he told me, "Oh, nice." Those conversations can go south quickly, but this one doesn't. Okay. But he said something interesting that you told him, and that's that you're an introvert. I think people would be really surprised that you're shy. Yeah. But you're a public figure. I mean, everybody knows you in town.
I know, or I think they do. And they're always nice, which is a great blessing. I mean, it really is. People are so nice. Almost always have nice things to say about our station, about you all, about me, and everybody I work with. I've had to learn the public speaking part of this job. I've had to learn, I'm not a great speech maker. I've learned that, but I want to be a storyteller. And also, it comes down to this, Victor and Andrea. I feel like when I'm talking to a group, what is in my heart? What do I feel passionate about? And then I'm going to speak honestly and more easily. It'll be a more interesting talk if it's something that I've experienced that I feel strongly about, versus just writing some great, worded prose about something that maybe I'm not connected to. So I've had to learn that part of the business, and it's been a learning experience. It's been a journey, a good journey.
And it's also been an experience of, I guess, just watching so many people come and go. Some of them obviously stay for longer, and then some of them, move on to.
I think I'm on co-anchor number 5 or 6. But
honestly, that's better than most places. We have
in
some
32
longevity
years.
here.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. I think news director number 1, 2, 3, 4, and general manager number 1, 2, 3, 4. So I always tell people, that's an example of how stable the station really is.
Yeah.
Do you count me as a co-anchor? I have co-anchored with you before.
Well, I think for a greater length of duty.
But I remember the day I came in for my, audition. I don't even know if that's what it was, since I called them and just said, "Hey, can I just come, show you what I can do?"
Forced her way into
no one
station.
invited me for an interview. I'd kind of asked for it, but I got to sit next to you.
Oh.
And it was so intimidating.
Oh, gosh.
But you were so nice. That quickly left me because you made me feel so comfortable. And that's a testament, because I guess you've dealt with that before. You've welcomed a lot of new people, and you do a great job.
I'm really a
at
50% guy. I want my partner, no matter what their experience, to share.
And not everybody's like that.
Yeah, I really want it to be that way in every way. And I know, Victor, from your standpoint, you've fought to get where you are. I don't know the whole story, but I've heard pieces, and I've been very impressed with. And you fought from Bowling Green. I mean, you have to in this business. Mm-hmm. It's a business where a lot of people would like to have our jobs.
That's the thing. If you want to advance, you have to make.
You got to be determined and focused, and also be not cocky, but you have to have some confidence about yourself. That's not easy.
No, it's not.
It's been interesting watching just all the on top of all the different shows being added. I mean, that's such a change. Just so many now one-man bands. So many people, just doing all their own.
Well,
what's that been like for you watching?
I started
all
with
that
typewriters
change?
and film.
I mean,
Can you imagine?
Well, and think about the live trucks that we used to have.
Oh my
When I
gosh.
tell people I used to run my own live shots, I would set up the truck, the mast, watch it sway in the wind, and now I have a little backpack that I press a button and plug
Well, the
into.
camera equipment back in the 70s in Florida was so heavy that you
Yeah.
had a second person carrying the recorder and the battery. Oh my
Batteries.
gosh, the battery
I mean, that's
was
the thing. You look at this little
huge
bitty thing we're recording into right now.
Oh
and
my
it's just-
gosh! And then sometimes you'd have an engineer to set up a live shot. So it's really changed, and no social media back then.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
print out directions. They'd
and
hand me a big stack of directions and be like, here you go, here's where
Yeah.
you're
No
going.
GPS back in the day.
and with film, once you cut it, and you glue it back together. But I mean, it's cut. I mean, I always feared that. I was like, gosh, once I cut it, it's like, okay, what do I do now? I mean, if there's a mistake, everything's advanced so much. But I don't know how much time we have left. But probably one of the biggest stories I've ever covered is Com Air, and that was a huge moment for the station, and in fact, that the dignity and the professionalism that the station covered, what I consider probably the biggest disaster, I think, easily in Kentucky that I've ever covered. And I'm really proud, despite the subject matter was horrible.
You all were on within, I mean, how quickly were you all on
It was
air?
a Sunday morning, and I got a phone call. It's never good when the phone rings at 6 a.m. on a Sunday, and for some reason I was up. Our news director had only been here like 2 weeks, Robert Thomas. So imagine that. And I'll never forget, he called, and I pick up the phone. I have no idea who's calling at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was actually up for some reason. And all he said very calmly was, "We think there's been a plane crash. We need you to come in." That's all he said. At that time, we didn't know if it had even crashed. We didn't know if it was a big plane, small plane, what had happened. We knew
Fatalities.
nothing.
Yeah.
I come running in here. I'm the only anchor here. So this is before morning news on weekends. And it's like 7 a.m. And I'd only been standing in the station newsroom for 5 minutes. And there's only a couple people there. And Robert goes, "You need to get on the air." I'm like, okay. But all I know is there might have been a plane crash. So I had to go live on the air by myself with that one little something. And from that, people started coming in. And, of course, it was a team effort. But
That was a rough day. I was a photographer at the time.
where did you go first?
Keeneland.
Mm-hmm.
Because we first, actually I take that back, we went to the airport, and so, because I was on call that weekend, but I worked weekends anyway, and I remember I just got called in early, and so we pulled up, we were outside the airport, and then they ended up saying, no, you can't see anything from the airport anyway, so they moved us over to Keeneland. And I remember standing there whenever they had the briefing, and they came out, and they finally said, it was a plane, there were 49 people on board, we have one survivor.
Yeah.
And they didn't say 48 people are dead. They just said 49 people on board. We have one survivor. And we all did the math real quick. I mean, just looked at each other and realized, oh, this is bad. And that was a hard day on everyone. Just because there were so many connections, you started to
Yes.
realize as the day went on.
Yeah.
People just,
I remember we did I guess it was maybe the 10-year anniversary not too long ago, and the photographer I was working with, it still brought tears to his eyes to go back and to see the monument at the Arboretum, the memorial. I mean, you probably were one of the people, you knew someone on there, or if you didn't, you knew someone that did.
Exactly. And that's exactly what Barbara was, my first co-anchor for the first 4 or 5 hours, and she said that to me during a break. She said, "Sam, if we don't know somebody on the plane," because at that time we didn't really have many names, you're going to know somebody who knew somebody. And I held it together really well until about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We'd been on since 7. My wife and daughter walked in the studio to check on me,
Oh, gosh.
and I almost lost it.
yeah.
Because I saw them, and I thought how easy it would have been for them to be on the plane.
Oh, yeah.
So, but on a little bit more higher note, I am very proud of the work we did that day. It was a very, very important moment in the history of the community. Tragedy beyond belief, but still important. As journalists, that's what we do. We have to, and we really tried not to speculate, and we tried to be factual, and then you have to be careful because people listening are waiting to hear.
And that's one of the most difficult things about this job is not taking it home with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is very easy to do that.
It is.
And obviously that was a huge tragedy, but we deal with little tragedies every day.
Sure
And
we
to
do.
Just leave that, here.
And when there are brighter moments, that's when we jump on them and have some fun.
Yeah.
And we
Exactly.
smile
You
and
have
we take
to.
advantage. You have to, because otherwise we would just go crazy.
Right. So you talked about, there are things like you're able to do public speaking well when you're passionate about something.
Well, I think it's well. They keep asking
It
me
is
back.
well. I'll say it for you, since you're a humble man. But what are the things that you're passionate about? What are the things that you do like to talk about? I know your health is something that
Yeah.
a lot of people
Yeah.
can relate to.
Yeah.
And you've
I've been through
really
prostate
good.
cancer. And I decided after a couple weeks after I was diagnosed, I'd be public about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already a public person, and it was a decision I made. I didn't have to do that. I just lost my dad to prostate cancer. And then within a month, I found out I had prostate cancer. So it was a really, wow. And so I went public with it, and it's probably one of the better decisions I've ever made, because ever since then, I still have people, not to the extent, and this was 8-9 years ago when I went through that, I still have people come up to me, and it's funny how they will do this. They'll come up to you and they'll go, "How you doing?" Which is code for how you doing since prostate cancer. They don't say those words, but they honestly care enough to say that to you and say, "How you doing? You doing okay? How's your health?" Sometimes you'll hear that, and it'll be in a grocery store, a hotel lobby, and then sometimes you'll have a guy come up to you and say, "I need to talk to you for a second. You know what you had? Yeah, I'm dealing with that."
Oh.
And so you talk to him. And I never say, "Well, I'm an expert." I always talk about my journey,
But you have your experience.
but I have my experience. And so back for a few years there, I was talking to wives, girlfriends, a lot of times, because the guys, as you guys know, Victor, I don't know if you're like this, we don't really like going to the
I
doctor.
know,
We
that's-
don't like getting probed and checked and blah, blah, blah. And it's only because I did have my PSA level checked every 6 months in my 40s. You can wait till you're 50 if you're a guy. But if you have any family history, like a father, a grandfather, or brother, you need to be checked. And it's a simple blood and urine test. And so I was being checked, and it's one of those tests, my last year of my dad's life, that my PSA number doubled. And it didn't mean I had cancer, but it was a red flag. And that's what helped save me.
And that's how they were able to find it.
And
so
prostate
fast.
cancer is treatable and curable if you deal with it early enough. So yeah, that in the Scouts, real big with Boy Scouts. I believe now they've got girls joining
That's right.
Boy Scouting. And so I'm very supportive. We give tours here at the station. Little Cub Scout groups come in and I talk, and I've been to Eagle Scout ceremonies. And so I help any way I can, because I think more than ever, I say this every year, but more than ever, young people need that kind of good direction and support. So I'm happy to be a part of that. So those would be two things, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're nearing up. The
Oh,
of
this
episode
marathon,
2.
Sam! You
I
gave
feel
us
like
so
we
much
could,
of
that's
your
the thing.
time.
We could just. I'm like, we could keep going forever, but I don't want to.
Well, you said
monopolize
storytelling
Sam's
is what you love. You're
Yeah.
good at it.
Oh,
No doubt
thank
about it.
you.
I really could sit and listen and
No,
talk to you
you're
all
very-
day.
you guys are sweet.
I also
Thank
learned
you.
a lot. I mean, that's the thing. There were a lot of things I just didn't know about Sam. So
Well,
I've
now we
enjoyed
should
this.
turn around to you at some point.
Well,
And
that's-
Andrea.
Yeah, we'll get on that. We'll see.
We'll get there eventually.
Well, and by the way, I hope everybody. Well, this may air after the special, but hopefully the people get to see the special.
Yeah,
Beyond
yeah.
the
That's our
bench.
hope, is that there's a way for that to
Yeah.
come out for people to find it. I think hopefully you can live on WKYT.com. That's what Darnell did
should.
with one of his specials.
I think
so.
you may have another Emmy coming your way.
I don't know.
Well, Sam, thank you for your time. We
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Andrea and Victor.
Thank you.
So there we go. Good conversation. Interesting hike.
Oh my gosh. Is that not the craziest thing in the world? The whole time I was thinking about that James Franco movie where the guy goes,
127 hours.
yes, I didn't remember the number of hours, but I know it was a lot of hours.
It was like 48 hours.
yeah, where he has
or
to like chop his own arm off,
27
you know.
days.
That could have gone
27 dresses.
so wrong.
Yeah.
Did you just say 27 dresses?
I was seeing if you were going to catch that.
Oh, I caught it. Anyway, could have gone so wrong, but apparently it was really good for Sam.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Good for him. And,
I would never.
Tell us about the food, Andrea.
Okay, so thank you for listening to the end of the podcast. Hopefully you didn't just fast forward, which is the obvious thing you could have done.
That's what I would do. I'd be like, I'm not listening to these
I
goobers on the other end.
That's like reading the last page of a book. Do you ever do that?
I think
It's
they would.
so tempting.
I think they would have had to thought that the payoff would have been worth it for them to fast forward to the end. And they're probably just like, yeah, I'll get there.
Oh, my
But no,
gosh.
I never go to the last.
I don't either, but
That's
some
a
people
temptation?
do.
I don't think it's tempting at all.
Sometimes it is,
That's like
depending on
fast forwarding to the end of a movie.
I agree.
I
It's
have no-
not a good idea, and you regret it instantly, but it is tempting.
No, it's okay. You and I have different ideas of temptation. I couldn't even imagine doing that.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyway, what was the food?
I was trying to think of something clever to say, and I had nothing.
Oh, that's
naturally.
the story of my life. Yeah. I'm always 3 minutes later after
Right,
the
like,
conversation's
wait.
over. Oh, I could have said that. It would have been
I
so witty.
know.
Oh,
Isn't that
that's
the
why I'm better
worst?
on Twitter. You know,
I'm so anxious.
gives me a few minutes to compose my thoughts.
Oh, I really liked your tweet. So the whole Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman thing. Number one, William H. Macy, also famous.
I know, and he wasn't even named in it.
getting
Even
no
though if
play.
you look at the indictment, it says, Felicity Huffman and spouse. I'm like, that's William H. Macy.
And
Don't
I'm
just
like,
put and spouse.
He deserves a name.
Well, on top of that, it seems kind of sexist to just put like the two actresses out there and not mention.
Now,
they've
normally
started
it would
getting
go
out
the
there.
other way, to
Yeah,
be
exactly.
fair. So it, woo,
You're excited about it, yeah. Go
women, yes. But maybe he wasn't involved in the whole scheme.
Barb's getting coffee. Hey, Barb, you want to be on the podcast?
Hi, Barb. No, she won't.
Oh, okay, that's all you'll hear of Barb on the podcast. 'cause
Everybody
she will once again
listening.
shoot us down.
Send Barbara Bailey
Yeah,
emails
yeah.
telling her we want
Tweet
her,
at Barb.
you on the podcast.
I'm going to give you all some privacy.
Okay.
I got to wake up with my caffeine.
We still
All right.
love you.
Understand that?
We love you, Barb.
Love you too.
Good.
What a sweetheart.
Show us. Be on the podcast.
So what were we talking about? Oh, Felicity Huffman and so that's just nuts. And you, my tweet was that.
Yes, you were like, yeah, my mom helped me get into college too. She used to read to me when I was little.
It's the
It
foundation.
was good. I was
That's
like,
it.
you know what? That's true. They helped in a way that they could.
Yeah, and then once as I got older, I basically was on my own because it's like, hey, Mom, I got a scholarship. She's like, oh, that's great. You're going to college?
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. Reality.
Yeah.
You adjusted well to real life.
There we go. Oh, so also, I'm just going to say it was oatmeal with raisins since we keep getting distracted and you had yet to actually talk
I know.
about the food.
I know. Just raisins, I think. I don't
was
think
it
it's
just
oatmeal.
raisins? Oh.
Yeah. And he said that at one point Brad walked into a room before he did and he saw raisins out and immediately took them and threw them in the trash because he knew his dad would freak out.
That's
Isn't that awesome?
hilarious.
I know. He said he found them and threw them against a wall and they were on like a crazy winning streak and he knew they were going to lose and they did.
They should add that to Brad's stats on the year. Like one steal. Just
One steal!
raisins in the garbage can.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Hey, Andrew, we have our first sponsor of the show. Did
What?
you hear about this?
No.
Yes. Conversations with Victor and Andrea, brought to you by WKYT News at 4:30 with Victor Puente.
Oh
and
my
Amber Philpott.
gosh.
Only half an hour, Victor, because that's all you can handle. There you
Dang
go.
it.
See, look at that.
I was
First sponsor.
I was hoping for like Hello Fresh or something that I could get free stuff from.
One of those mattress companies finally got into
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
No, just that one that I decided to insert on my own.
Stamps.com. I'll take
Oh, yeah.
anything. I'm not
MailChimp?
picky. MailChimp. Anything. We'll know we've made it when MailChimp comes
there we go.
calling. All right. Favorite things.
Okay.
Do you want to go first? Or do
Sure,
you
I'll
want
go
me to
first. Mine's pretty simple. Over the weekend, my wife and I went and saw Captain Marvel. Mm-hmm. It was really good. It wasn't the best of the Marvel movies, but it was a very good one. And I think at this point, even what people consider to be the lower tier Marvel movies like Iron Man 2 and Thor: The Dark World are still fun to watch. I still enjoy them. But this one was, I'd say, near the top. It was very good.
Good.
Enjoyed it a lot.
Good.
Yeah. Had some
And-
twists. Brie Larson was great.
You're an aficionado in this category,
Exactly.
so you know
I
what
know
you're
what
talking
I'm talking about. Samuel L. Jackson was one of the main characters in the whole thing, and he was de-aged, so he looked like he did in the 90s.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How cool. What? They can do that? Well, I mean, Benjamin Button, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they did that in Iron Man 3, maybe Winter Soldier. One of them, they had Tony Stark look just like he did in the 80s.
That's so
Well,
crazy to me that
Robert
they
Downey
can
Jr.
do that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I wish they'd do that for us.
Yeah. Well,
All I ever get told is, you
kind
look
of
so much smaller in person. You're so much prettier in person.
I think they first really did it in X-Men 3 when they did it with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, but
That's awesome.
it didn't look quite as good as it does now. Now it's
We just look fatter and
basically
uglier on
flawless.
TV.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely aging in reverse. Yesterday I was outside of Frankfurt and a lady, I see her, she was walking by and she looks at me and she says loud enough that I can hear it to somebody, he looks bigger on TV. Like, I don't know.
I
what.
mean, they say it to my face. So
That's good. All right, yeah. So
whatever.
but I don't know if she meant fatter or taller because I'm 5'11", so I don't know How much taller
I
people
think she meant
I am?
fatter.
Probably, yeah. No, I was like, oh, I guess
At least that's what they mean for me, typically.
So that's my thing. Yes. Now back to our digressions. Captain Marvel.
All right, what was I doing when you came to get me? When you came to fetch me this morning?
I think you were watching The Bachelor.
Exactly, and it has something to do with this.
Okay.
So, the fence jump. Have you heard about the fence jump?
I think I have seen maybe a meme of it.
Yes, that's my favorite thing this week is all of the fence jump memes and the fact that this is just everyone is talking about The Bachelor, even if you don't watch it and you look down on the people who do, like myself. It's everywhere. I heard it on NPR. They were talking about the fence jump. Terry Gross is talking about the fence jump. I was just like, what world are we living in?
What caused the fence jump? He just got tired and hopped the fence and took off his mic or something? That's what
I'm not done with the finale, but I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen.
Maybe I saw it on CBS this morning.
But the girl that he wanted to pick in the end broke up with him.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
That's not how it's supposed to go. He's supposed to have his choice of all the Phillies right up until the end.
Okay, here's the moment.
No matter how emotionally damaging it may be to each of them and how freakish it is that their families are going along with it. Sorry, continue.
Okay, so there was a moment in this breakup that I'm shocked took this long to get to, but the producers brought in her dad who, they had just met him and he was just like, you're not ready. You're obviously not ready to get engaged. Like, what are you doing? And, she was very susceptible, obviously, to his opinions and what he was saying. And she, that night, after talking to her dad, broke up with Colton. And when she told him that she had spoken to her dad, he's like, your dad was here? So in that moment, he knew the producers had flown her dad out to have this conversation. And it's like he realized everyone around him was his enemy.
They were all against him. Yeah.
Yes. Can you imagine that feeling? I mean, there was just this moment in his face where he was just like, I'm a pawn. They don't care. And it was just like, oh, my gosh. It was the most real I've ever seen reality TV
sounds
get.
Intense.
It was amazing. But he ended up breaking up with the other two girls who were both, all in with him. And going back to this girl who's still like, she's not even just saying no to an engagement. She's basically like just saying, I don't know if I can get there. Like, I don't even know if I'm that into you. And he broke up with these other two girls. Just, it's nuts.
Well, you wouldn't want to continue on a relationship with somebody else anyway if you're that.
Right. I mean, I get it. But it's just.
The whole premise is horrifying.
Yes.
But I'm sure it does make great television.
Yes. Train wreck. And this has been the worst wreck of them all. It's been amazing. But entertaining. I mean.
All right. Well, our recommendations this week are one piece of media that empowers women and another one that objectifies them. So there we go. Captain Marvel and The Bachelor.
So unfair. I do not like how you just summed that up at all. I am well aware I would never be on the show. I wouldn't. I already know I'd be miserable. I'd compare myself to everybody and I'd be miserable and I'd probably say something bad and they'd paint me to be awful. They call it, what is it, phantom edits or something where they, take one part of this sentence and put it with this.
They make you sound horrible.
Oh, yeah. I just don't trust anyone
There's
that much.
nothing really that real about reality TV.
True. Anyway.
All right. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that, though. I've definitely, there have been times
honestly, it was just the fact that it was on NPR. That's what really got me.
There have been seasons of The Bachelor where my wife was into it and I would get caught up into it, too. So I know how easy it is. It
happens.
Yeah.
I understand that it's not the best concept.
And then I think the next season after that, I was like, oh, The Bachelor's coming on. And my wife said, no, I don't want to watch it.
Not this time.
And I said, oh, okay. And I was kind of disappointed. But then we got past it, and it was all probably for the best.
More guys like it than you would think.
Oh, no, I think a lot of guys like it.
Well, yeah, it's just like 30 beautiful women. Yeah, I get it.
Okay. Well, Andrea, that was fun. I'm glad our conversation with Sam was good, and I'm glad,
We'll keep working on Barb.
Yeah, I'm glad again, that may be the most you hear of Barb on the podcast, but at some point it is our goal to win her over. So, yeah, tweet at her. Andrea, where can people find you on Twitter if they want to interact?
At Andrea, WKYT.
All right. And I am at the Victor Puente, but you can also, we have pages on Facebook, so feel free to search that up. Or, if you just see us out in public, tell us how much bigger we look on TV. That's something people do, too.
There you go. We'll take it.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.